On this Wednesday night, the exit strategy for Canadians in Wuhan, China.
It was like being in a Walking Dead episode.
Ottawa's plan to send a plane as cases in China accelerate and racism spreads along with the virus.
Their colleague at work went around asking everyone who was Asian, "Are you from China?" And it was very inappropriate.
Global News exclusive.
Canada is a perfect laundromat.
How the crackdown on BC's dirty money could be spawning problems elsewhere. Plus, love from Canada to Australia.
I hope animals don't die or stuff like that.
How disaster ignited heartwarming gestures.
Global National with Dawna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. We begin tonight with the impact the new coronavirus is having on families and businesses as that virus continues to spread. Entire cities in China have now virtually shut down, not just in Hubei province, the epicenter of the outbreak, but across mainland China. Canada today upgraded its travel warning, advising Canadians to avoid all non-essential travel to all of mainland China. And Air Canada today suspended direct flights to the mainland. The government has now organized a charter flight to bring home Canadians caught in the lockdown in Wuhan. There's no clarity, though, on when that will happen or where those people will go.
Part of the process now is figuring out exactly what our protocols will be when we return Canadians that wish to come home. And we're working very closely with our U.S. counterparts who obviously have some experience in this.
A charter flight carrying more than 200 American citizens airlifted out of Wuhan touched down at an airbase in California today. Health officials have asked them to voluntarily quarantine themselves for 3 days. At least 5 people on board an evacuation flight to Japan have been hospitalized and are undergoing tests. And the UK is making plans to fly some of its citizens home from Wuhan. They'll be quarantined for 14 days. Australia plans to fly as many 600 of its citizens out and quarantine them for up to 2 weeks on Christmas Island, more than 1,500 kilometers away from the Australian coast, at the site of an immigration detention centre. More than 7,100 cases have now been confirmed in China, an increase of over 1,000 compared to yesterday. And there are thousands more suspected cases. 170 people have now died. There are more people sick in China now with the new coronavirus than became ill with SARS in China in 2003, though fewer people have died. That rapid acceleration has led the World Health Organization to reconvene its emergency committee tomorrow. It will determine whether to declare a global public health emergency.
I believe that the world is pulling together to respond to this outbreak. We are at an important juncture in this event. We, as WHO, believe that these chains of transmission can still be interrupted.
And that remains the hope. But right now, Canada is ramping up plans to get about 160 Canadians out of the Wuhan area. Abigail Bimman has been talking to some of them and has our top story tonight.
We get up in the morning, we brush our teeth.
Routine is key for Canadian Wayne Duplessis and his family as they spend most of their days inside their Wuhan apartment.
It was like being in a Walking Dead episode. There's no one around. And you're used to things being a little quiet because all the bikes are electric, right? All the motorcycles are electric. And so you're used to things kind of coming up on you. I turn a corner and boom, there's like 20 people in masks.
We have a lot of food stocked up because of Chinese New Year and family members not coming here since the breakout. So generally, nobody in the house goes outside.
Vancouverite Patterson Wu was visiting his girlfriend's family in Wuhan when the outbreak began. He says entertaining himself is easier than staying positive as the number of sick grows. And he wants Canada to do more.
We're supposed to be one of the most modern countries in the world. And it's kind of sad to see, Koreans and Japanese, they all mobilize so fast. America, but we're so slow.
I would disagree with you because...
In Ottawa, the Foreign Affairs Minister pushed back on the claim Canada is slow as he announced Wednesday afternoon that a plane has been secured to get the 160 Canadians in China who want help out.
Canada is at the forefront of the response. We are talking with the allies.
And it's not an easy decision, but we've decided to stay put.
Duplessis is concerned about the potential of picking up the virus on the plane, though he's worried about getting sick in China, too.
One of the discussions that I had with Emily, my wife, is about sharing passwords, you know, to our bank accounts and PayPal, that sort of thing, with our daughter who's in Indonesia. If worst came to worst, and we were no longer here.
As of Wednesday afternoon, Canada updated its travel advisory to China, warning against all non-essential travel. But there are still many unanswered questions, such as when the plane will arrive, what happens to the people on board once they land, and who pays the bill. Abigail Bimman, Global News, Ottawa.
The vast majority of confirmed cases are in China, but one thing that's not clear yet is whether China's attempt to contain the virus is working and whether people without symptoms can infect others. That will make containing this much harder. The number of other countries with confirmed cases now of the new coronavirus is rising. At least 18 countries and territories are reporting it. Finland has confirmed its first case, and the United Arab Emirates has also confirmed a case, the first in the Middle East. Heather Yourex-West looks at the global response.
How quickly this virus is spreading outside of China may prompt the World Health Organization to finally declare the outbreak an international health emergency.
Although the numbers outside China are still relatively small, they hold the potential for a much larger outbreak.
The World Health Organization says at least 6 cases of the disease have now been transmitted outside China. In Germany, 4 people have become ill after a woman with no symptoms traveled from China for business meetings.
She was asymptomatic on arrival, but became ill shortly before taking her return flight.
While there are still questions around how this new strain of the coronavirus spreads, most cases have required prolonged close contact with someone who is already ill.
Asymptomatic transmission isn't impossible, but this would be breaking the mold, right? If suddenly asymptomatic transmission was a big way of this spreading around the world, and biologically it doesn't make sense.
Canada's 3rd case of the disease, a BC man in his 40s, has now been confirmed. Ontario has 2 confirmed cases, and as of Wednesday morning, Ontario health officials were testing 23 others. 4 people are also being tested in Saskatchewan.
I think we need to be reassured that from the 3 cases reported in Canada and other jurisdictions, in 2 instances, the confirmed cases are well enough to self-isolate at home.
But the World Health Organization says all countries need to remain vigilant as the number of sick continues to rise worldwide. Heather Yourex-West, Global News, Calgary.
Weeks into this, and there's still no formal name for the coronavirus. We'll tell you what goes into naming a new virus at globalnews.ca/globalnational. Global News has reported extensively on the police investigation and crackdown into money laundering and organized crime at BC casinos. Now we've obtained exclusive new information about Ontario casinos. Documents obtained by Global News reveal the number of investigations into suspicious cash in Ontario casinos more than doubled in 2018. Experts say international drug cartels that targeted BC to wash their dirty money have now shifted their focus east. Couteur has this exclusive story.
It was a simple scheme used by criminal organizations to launder money through Vancouver casinos. Someone would come in with duffel bags full of cash, gamble a little, and then cash out and leave with clean money. BC did roll out new laws to crack down on so-called suspicious transactions flowing through casinos, but there's concern the problem has moved east to Ontario. According to data obtained exclusively by Global News, the number of suspicious transaction investigations in Ontario casinos has more than doubled since 2018, which happens to be the same year BC cracked down on money laundering at casinos there.
Are we concerned about people from other jurisdictions coming here to try and infiltrate our casinos? Absolutely.
Still, the head of the Casino Investigation Unit with the Ontario Provincial Police says the spike in the number of suspicious transactions is a result of better training and better scrutiny. He also blames the increase on a recent shift in games available at some casinos.
You turn a slot facility into a full-blown casino with table games, there's larger transactions that automatically occur that should generate suspicious transaction reports.
Organized crime experts say it's a nationwide issue.
Canada is a perfect laundromat, and we don't do anything to remove that label. Everyone in the world knows that Canada has a lower risk of prosecution and detention than any other country in the world.
Antonio Nicaso says every major criminal organization has a branch in Canada for that reason. Police allege Angelo Figliomene and nearly 24 others linked to the Italian mafia have laundered roughly $70 million through Ontario casinos in a 2-year period. The charges Figliomene faces include directing a criminal organization and possessing proceeds of crime. The allegations have not been proven in court. It's believed it was done in $30,000 to $50,000 chunks split among multiple players.
If you only gamble a small amount, cash out, leave the casino, that looks like casino winnings. So you leave there under the guise of successful play, and you've essentially laundered some funds.
While law enforcement believes they are making strides because they're tracking more of these suspicious transactions, organized crime experts say nothing is being done to deter the practice. According to Statistics Canada, between the year 2000 and 2016, 3/4 of people charged with money laundering walked free. Michael Couteur, Global News, Ottawa.
There's a call for sweeping changes to Canada's broadcasting and telecommunications sector. The federal government asked a panel to consider everything from the role of Netflix to mobile phone and internet services and the future of the CBC. After 18 months of consultations, it's come up with 97 recommendations. It's a lot to digest. Our David Akin breaks it down for us. David?
Well, Dawna, this proposed rewrite of Canada's media and telecom regulations starts with a basic idea that one rule ought to apply to all companies providing media content to Canadian audiences, regardless of the platform, regardless of their country of origin. And that basic idea would have the biggest impact on popular digital services not based in Canada. Think Netflix, Disney, Spotify, YouTube, or Apple TV+. First, they'd all start collecting GST or HST on the monthly subscriptions paid by their Canadian customers, just like any Canadian media company. And those foreign web giants would also kick in a percentage of the revenue they earn in Canada into a special fund to help create more Canadian content. That's something Canadian media companies like Global's parent company, Chorus, already does, contributing hundreds of millions of dollars a year to a Canadian media fund.
If you benefit from operating in the Canadian system, you should contribute. It's a simple principle.
But will this cost consumers more?
So we do not think that this is something that would be passed on to consumers or result in higher prices.
The panel also believes it is unfair to private sector media companies that the CBC should be able to sell advertising while it gets a federal subsidy of more than $1 billion a year. So the panel is telling the government to force CBC to go ad-free. Supervising all of these changes would be a new super regulator, a CRTC on steroids that would have sweeping powers to poke its nose into everything from the price of home internet service to writing up codes of conduct for news organizations.
Our goal is simple, to make the system more equitable than it is right now. The technological changes that we have seen have made it so that our system doesn't work anymore.
And the government is promising to act quickly to table some new legislation within the year, but already there are some concerns that some of the panel's recommendations may violate some international trade agreements like the new NAFTA, and some might even violate the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Dawna?
All right, David Akin in Ottawa, thanks. It is over, except for the final goodbye. The European Parliament has overwhelmingly backed the terms of the UK's departure from the EU. MEPs marked the moment by singing Auld Lang Syne. Some said they hoped the UK would return one day. Others warned Britain not to seek too many advantages in future trade talks. And Nigel Farage, who has pushed for Brexit for years, waved a little Union Jack flag until his microphone was cut off.
I know you want to ban our national flags, but we're going to wave you goodbye, and we'll look forward in the future to working with you as sovereign.
The Vice President of the European Parliament told him, "Put your flags away, you're leaving, and take them with you." The UK officially departs on Friday. 2 dead satellites on a collision course. Coming up, the risky situation astronomers are keeping a close eye on. We're getting a clearer picture tonight of just how much the grounding of Boeing's entire fleet of 737 MAX jets could cost the company. The tab is expected to surpass $18 billion US. That's roughly double what was estimated. Costs include compensating airlines and customers, reopening the 737 MAX factory, and the sharp rise in cost to produce the plane again. The company also revealed today it lost $636 million last year, its first annual loss since 1997. There's no exact timeline for when the MAX series jets will be cleared for flight. Boeing is hopeful regulators will approve a software update by mid-2020. The best-selling aircraft was grounded last March after crashes in Indonesia and Ethiopia killed 346 people, including 18 Canadians. A close encounter is expected in space tonight, and satellite tracking companies are watching it closely. 2 long-defunct satellites will whiz past each other about 900 kilometers above Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. At one point, it's expected the 2 hunks of space junk could be just 12 meters apart. That's according to calculations by satellite tracking company Leo Labs. And here's why it matters. They're traveling at 14.7 kilometers per second. A collision would hurl hundreds of pieces of debris into space, threatening other working satellites. Scientists put the probability of a crash at about 5%. It's predicted close calls like this will occur more often in future, as it's cheaper and easier to launch spacecraft now, and Earth's orbit is getting more crowded. Canada's soccer star Christine Sinclair has solidified her place in history. She just set a new world record.
Sinclair wide open. Is this it? It is!
That goal against St. Kitts and Nevis is the Canadian captain's 185th of her career, and that means the 36-year-old is now 1 goal ahead of retired American striker Abby Wambach, who held the record until today. Recycled racism still ahead. The new coronavirus triggers an outbreak of old xenophobia.
You're watching Global National.
There's much the experts still don't know about the new coronavirus and how it spreads. Uncertainty can lead to fear, and among some people, it's fueling a backlash against people from Asia. Stereotypes and racism are emerging. And as Robin Gill reports, it's accelerated by misinformation spreading on social media.
Chinatowns in major Canadian cities are already shrinking or disappearing because of development and migration to the suburbs. The threat of a new disease is hurting what little business is left. Terry Chu, an activist, is collecting the disheartening stories.
People, are afraid, like if they have a cough and you see people just choking back their coughs because they're just afraid of what people will think of them because you are Chinese, and people just keep their distance from you.
The viral nature of social media is exacerbating ignorance surrounding the new coronavirus, calling it the Kung Fu flu and suggesting it's a product of Chinese food.
We are being singled out, we are being stigmatized because of the coronavirus.
It doesn't help that a major Toronto newspaper recently published this editorial cartoon. All this misinformation is prompting health officials to call for calm.
Now I'm getting people telling me, oh my God, don't go to this part of Toronto because, there's lots of Asian people there. That's how this descends very quickly. And that's exactly what happened during SARS, and none of that is remotely helpful.
Well, that's part of the racialization of Asians, right?
John Paul Katungal is with the Social Justice Institute. He studied Canada's history with the Yellow Peril, recycling racism against the Asian community when there's an outbreak.
There has been kind of a long-standing narrative around Canada's vitality being threatened by the presence of foreigners.
What happens if something is coming from England? Are we racializing them as well?
Queenie Chu is a nurse who works with immigrants and believes the rampant racism isn't helping any Canadian.
I don't think we should racializing this because where it came from.
That tendency to blame comes from not knowing what's real and what's false, and tapping into simplistic stereotypes isn't making us more informed. Robin Gill, Global News, Richmond, BC.
Mission Postable next. Messages of hope from a Quebec classroom to Australia. The world has watched as the fires that swept across Australia devastated people, property, and wildlife. At least 30 people have been killed, more than 10 million hectares of land destroyed, and an estimated 1 billion animals affected. The scale of it is hard to take in. And so kids in one Quebec classroom took a simple approach to try to help, and it's had a powerful personal impact. Amanda Jelowicki explains.
What were some of the things that our friends were saying in Australia?
Most of these young children had never heard of Australia until their teacher told them about the devastating wildfires.
Was it easy for people in Australia to have to experience the fires?
It hit the grade 1 and 2 children hard.
There's animals that are dying, the trees are falling, koalas are dying too. Really sad.
And why did you choose purple? Amanda Donovan teaches at this school outside of Montreal. Her parents had a trip to Australia planned, and it sparked an idea to make and send cards to firefighters.
Kindness has absolutely no limits. And when it starts with our littlest, just think of their lives and how much kindness they can bring.
I love that you were using pencil crayons and markers.
The students made cards with messages of hope inside.
I hope they get lots of rain in Australia. I hope animals don't die or stuff like that.
And my granddaughter, who's in grade 1, her class made these cards.
This week, Donovan's parents visited Eden, Australia. They hand-delivered the children's letters to the local fire department.
On behalf of the St. John's.
The fire department posted the story on Facebook. Australians responded with dozens of grateful messages.
I never knew where was Australia, but now I learned about it. It makes me really happy.
And I thought it was really special for the kids to see how their gesture, their acts of kindness has an impact.
Oh my God!
The firefighters were so grateful. They're sending back goodies for the kids. And now they know. They sent their love around the world, and it came right back. Amanda Jelowicki, Global News, Montreal.
And that is Global National for this Wednesday. I'm Dawna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada is Slave Lake, Alberta. We'd love to see your Canada. Please email it to viewers@globalnational.com. And thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.